It started with a tweet. Recent reports came out that Howard University students feel disrespected by residents using the yard as a dog park, but this resident thinks the campus should be moved. Well, whatever the point is, I don't know. I do know where we went with it. Bernie Cedars tweeted, "Dogs are a tool of white supremacy and gentrification. That's not just my opinion. There is research that shows how white newcomers' dog walking routes stake out territory, and white owners use their pets to socialize with other white owners, excluding minorities. For the love of God, we are in some kind of, the world is insane. And I think the end is nigh. The end is nigh. Welcome to the end, friends, because this is it. Everything is a tool of white supremacy, no matter what. And even if it's not intentional, they'll call it implicit or something like that." He goes on to say, "Meanwhile, if black dog owners would show up in a white neighborhood, they would be surveilled and harassed." Thank you for citing whatever this one paragraph is. And then he goes on to get angry about how people are telling him to shut up. Dude, dogs are not a tool of white supremacy. Like, dogs are pets. They're animals. And not all white people have them. And no, they are not staking out territory. And, well, anyway, we get to this. Helen Pluckrose, who is part of the Sokol Squared hoax, and she is an editor at Arrow Magazine, secular, liberal, humanist, and she does a very interesting breakdown and makes some really interesting points about what she calls applied postmodernism, which is very interesting. So let's read Helen's assessment. She said, "I know I wasn't going to be here, but I really need to address the surprise at the dogs are a tool of white supremacy thing. Of course they are in this conception of the world. If you're bewildered by this claim, you've not been paying attention. Thread to follow. First D," she says, "Now I've had sufficient tea to address this thing. It's actually very useful." And we have this tweet from Kathy Young. And Kathy says, "Yes, this is real, and this guy writes for mainstream publications. Imagine being this way." He says, "The takeaway here shouldn't be dogs are bad or white dog owners suck. It's that the effects of white supremacy are so pervasive that they trickle into every crack of our society." Well, Helen has a really, really interesting take. She goes on, "My team and I keep trying to explain this thing we call applied postmodernism. We call it that because of the way it's built on a Foucauldian understanding of the world that sees it as constructed of systems of power and privilege." Excuse me. "People are positioned within these systems by their status in society, which is tied to their identity and power, works through them at all levels through discourse, ways of talking about things and being in the world. It is hard to spot this because it is so natural to us. Nowhere is this conception of the world stronger than in critical race theory. See these tenets of anti-racist scholarship activism developed by activists, including Robin DiAngelo from Mike Nanya's second doc on the implosion of Evergreen College. Note in particular, the question is not, did racism take place, but rather, how did racism manifest in that situation? So we start with the conclusion that racism must be present, but difficult to see, and then we look for it, and then we find it. Basically, they have created a frame of thinking that basically says racism is always an issue. And no matter what happens, it is white supremacy. It is fake. It is a fake logic meant to manipulate you. And so that no matter what you do, they will claim it was because of or against someone based on their race. Let's read on. It's very much a form of magical thinking, reading into things for precisely the kind of significance one wants, and then finding one's beliefs justified. This is why we call the approach grievance studies, because its purpose is to start with a grievance and then find a cause for it. Given this kind of mentality, of course dogs will be a tool of white supremacy. Everything is. Everything. No matter where you are or what you're doing, if you're in a place where humans or of various races are, you will be able to spot white supremacy. Here, and this is fantastic. Did it seem to you that the white cashier served the black customer quickly? She wanted him out of the way because she's uncomfortable with blackness. Did it seem like she took her time checking out the stuff? Evidence that she resents having to serve a black person and does so grudgingly. No matter what you do, they will claim what you did was because of racism. Did you step out of line and let someone pass you? It's because you are white guilt. It's like that flow chart that people share, where it says all of these different things like leaving a neighborhood is white flight, racism. Coming into the neighborhood is gentrification. Racism. Quite literally, there is nothing you can do. That's the point. It's a system of power to blame one race for everything. That's not social justice. Not at all. And they claim to stand behind this idea of anti-racism, when in fact they're extremely racist. And it's not just about white people. It's about Asians too. And now, as the system eats itself and degrades in its corrosive nature, there's actually people who claim that, like, black men are there was one article that said something like black men are the white people of black people. I kid you not. That's how insane this stuff is. Let's read on. She says, you could then raise this with her as a way of making her racism visible to her and everyone else. She will need to accept it immediately, apologize, and promise to do better. If she denies her racism or says she hadn't even noticed the race of the customer, this is white fragility. Welcome to the world. Welcome to the insane world of intersectionality and left-wing identitarianism. Helen goes on. That would just support the claim that racism is pervasive, but so ordinary white people don't even notice it. That's how it works, and it's insane. But how much do we need to worry about this? The reaction to this young man's claims about dogs as a tool of white supremacy has been met largely with incredulity and dismissal. Most people don't think this way and don't even understand it. Think about so I did a story a couple days ago, a week ago or so, about an about Pride event that was shut down by, I kid you not, LGBTIQ2S plus activists demanding a vigil for that group led by QTIBPOC plus people. What does that mean? To the average person, to the overwhelming majority of 99.9% of people, it means literally nothing. But they live in such a strange world that if you adopt a worldview based on everything being a grievance, you will eventually create this extremely complicated and circuitous narrative that makes literally no sense to everyone but you. Think about it. You live in a world where someone who takes too long as a cashier is racist, but you simultaneously live in a world where going too quickly is racist. How can your brain comprehend a world that is incoherent? It can't. You will make ridiculous systems that ultimately make no sense. I can simultaneously argue that dogs that not having a dog is a tool of white supremacy, because you can just make it up. White people view animals as beneath them. It's inherent to their racism. Therefore, having a pet represents this racist structure. So white saviors, seemingly aware of this issue, refuse to accept a notion that having a pet could be a good thing because they're scared of racism. This is white savior. White people believing they're doing the right thing. You see how you just make it up? You just make up the nonsense? Let's see what else she's got. I think we should worry about it on two levels. When it becomes a dominant ideology in an enclosed space, it is highly destructive and dangerous. Please watch this if you haven't already and see how it took over Evergreen College, which I'm sure most of you know about. It is insidious and has gained legitimacy through the process of idea laundering. Because it is being accepted as legitimate scholarship and built upon, well-intentioned people will help this process unwittingly because racism exists and is unconscionable. And I think that's James Lindsay. Although this perception of the world is counterintuitive and most people do not think this way, there is something very simple and appealing about it once you've grasped it, which allows people to feel they are doing good by detecting and calling out racism everywhere. It also allows you to assert authority and power over others, which means grifters, the real kinds, on the far left who work in these media organizations, seeing a scandalous narrative that they can create because the ideology allows them to create a narrative where it doesn't exist, they can then assert their power, produce a scandalous story, and get those sweet, sweet clicks and sell those sweet, sweet ads. I can only read this stuff in short bursts, and then I need to think about something else because otherwise it infects my perception of the world and how I see my fellow humans. They stop being individuals and become clusters of identity factors embedded with a power structure. This kind of thing can so easily happen. And then she cites this tweet that kind of went viral the other day. Outdoor Girl tweeted, "My BFF is white, adopted and raised two African-American babies. One just graduated college, has denounced his parents because of their whiteness. They're heartbroken. I started yesterday sending her stuff on critical race theory so she can understand what he's been taught. These people are being taught to be racists, to view race. They're being told that if you don't see race, you are a racist. And then they tell people to act upon the differences in race, segregation, and racism. This is why I absolutely can't stand these people. And so we have this story. It's actually from March 6th. White privilege lecture tells students white people are dangerous if they don't see race. which can only result in one world. A bunch of people who judge each other based not by the content of their character, but by the color of their skin. So I ask, how does this worldview bring about Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream? It doesn't. So are they opposed to the teachings of Dr. King? It appears so, and it's particularly troublesome to me. It seems like we're going through a party swap today. That this fringe regressive ideology is becoming pervasive among the Democrats and not the Republicans. The Republicans are resisting it and they're being attacked for it. But because the left has always claimed the moral high ground, they think they're right. They'll ban you from social media, they'll ban your bank account. But at the same time, it seems like they're mostly just destroying themselves. So I'll leave it there. I've got one more video coming up in a few minutes. I believe one more video, and I will see you then.